Hi, I'm Jean. If you're seeing this, we're either friends, or you know me, or maybe you're just coming across this because somebody shared it. Thing is, I've been doing ministry for 14 years, and I've mostly stayed quiet and watched with great concern as some of my fellow followers of Jesus, they do things like apply beast-like qualities to absolutely every president that has ever been elected in this country since I've been alive. This latest one is no different. And I've asked myself, why does this happen? Why do we keep doing this? Should we keep doing this? Is this something that we should be doing? So I invite you today to maybe brainstorm with me from the Word of God to see if this is exactly what we should be doing. For those of you that read God's book, that read the Bible, in the last book, in the book of Revelation, in chapter 14, it says, Babylon is fallen. It does not say that it is falling. The enemy has been defeated. We know this is true because of what Jesus did for humanity in terms of the chain breaking at the cross and guaranteed through his resurrection. Nobody, absolutely nobody will escape what is coming. And that sounds ominous, but what is coming? Well, Jesus is coming. That's not a bad thing. All who accept the cross and its eternal gift are saved and are worthy to stand in front of God when he comes because of our high priest Jesus' work in the most holy place in heaven right now with his blood. That work allows us, as Hebrews chapter 4 verse 16 says, to come boldly to the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So my fellow believers have been talking to me about tribulation since I was a toddler. My grandfathers went to sleep saying the same thing to me. By the way, for those of you that don't know what I mean when I say sleep, it means they died. So they died talking about this coming tribulation that would be here before the coming of Jesus. And so did many before them. And by the way, that happened in another country. That was in Argentina. That was in another whole language. So when I think about this and I think the fact that they're gone and everybody thinks that tribulation is coming in their lifetime, I think we need to restudy and revisit what tribulation is all about when it happens, who it happens to, and how it applies to those that have lived before us and to those that might be experiencing it right now and in the future. Us brainstorming together today with me, I think let's do it better by just bringing in just the words of Jesus. You know, if we look at what he said about end times, we have to look no further than Matthew 24. Now, I know that Mark mentions it as well, a lot smaller, and John basically references to it. But in that chapter, Matthew 24, Jesus talks about the end times. We can't dispute that. But end times for who? For us? For his disciples? For the reformers? For the missionaries? For revolutionaries? You know, the list of possibilities is long if you apply his words to history since he shared those words. So what I think some of us may have done or may have been doing ourselves is basically a disservice by interpreting Matthew 24 as a chapter that speaks exclusively just about our end times. Now, here's the disclaimer. I have changed my mind or my perspective on this several times over the past decade, and I actually expect to continue doing so. Why? Because of what it says in this book, what it tells me about the second coming of Jesus. So brainstorm with me. If we start with verses 1 through 5 and we look at them in the light of verses 15 through 20 as well, most agree that these are directly and clearly talking about the destruction of Jerusalem in the first century. The Jews that listened to the Christians at that time, who shared this prophecy with them from Jesus, were able to run to the hills and avoid being caught in the destruction of Jerusalem that actually took place in 70 AD, as Jesus said it would. Verses 6 through 14 are more inclusive and have lots of crossovers, and we readily use verses 8 and 14 to refer to things that we are seeing in the present, like birth pangs, and this gospel shall be preached to all the world, and then the end will come. I'm okay with that. But should I be okay with that given the context of the verses they sit among? So as far as prophecies go, there are also timelines to consider, especially here, if we include verses 15 through 34. Things not only appear to coincide and be confirmed as occurring throughout history, but there's also a distinct lack of the word that they are occurring worldwide in these signs. Let's go through that. Have there been wars? Check. Have countries gone against other countries? Check. Have ethnicities gone against other ethnicities? Yeah. And history is continuing to repeat itself. Famines, check. Sickness, check. Earthquakes, check. People being delivered to be killed all over history, even right now, check. Tribulations all over the world and history, even right now, I guess that's what we're trying to find out. I think so. Are people hated? Check. Are people offended? Check. Do people betray one another? Check. Have there been false prophets? Check. Has there been lawlessness? Check. Has the love of many grown cold? Check. Have the days been shortened, as mercy? Is that talking about our age or how long these tribulations last? But I think, as you'll see next, I think they have been shortened. Has the sun gone dark? Check. Dark moon? Check. Stars falling? Check. So in the end, only verses 14 and 30 stand alone as the ones that have yet to come true. The gospel going out to the whole world and the second coming. Everything that is talked about in the previous sections of verses can be argued to have been happening either sporadically throughout history or for a long time already. I feel that when we commit the error of applying the entirety of this chapter as exclusively talking about the end times for our century or our decade, we end up forming things like Pathfinder programs so our children on the very DL, for those that know better, can have the necessary skills to run and survive in the hills. We ignore and diminish the plight and suffering and tribulation suffered by those followers and churches of Jesus whose days had to be cut short as described by the many mentions of the word tribulation in Revelation chapter 2 and 3 for those 7 churches. What about their tribulation? The word tribulation shows up 21 times in the New Testament. 1/5 of those times it's found in the book of Revelation and right here with those churches. We ignore and diminish the plight and suffering and tribulation by fellow followers today as they are racially profiled, gentrified, and persecuted simply because of the color of their skin. What about their tribulation? Do we not want that to be cut short? We ignore and diminish the plight and suffering of tribulation suffered by fellow followers, dying as martyrs in the developing world, countries around our planet. What about their tribulation right now and in the past? This approach completely ignores the following section as well of Matthew 24. This is verses 37 through 38. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark. How can the world and believers be leading normal lives and enjoying them if the world is simultaneously on fire and full of tribulation for all of God's people now and in the past? How will it be possible to deceive, if possible, even the elect? I have an idea. I think it's by convincing them or us that we know the day and hour, which no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. When we think that we know when Jesus is going to come back, not only do we say we know better than God, but we place our faith in prophecy and not in God. So I invite you to stop looking for guarantees in the signs that you see out there and start looking for assurance in His promises. I think we need to call the people we have influence over in our lives to implore them to place their faith in God and not our interpretation of God's promises. I think our call is the same as Noah's call. Hey, pick up a hammer. Keep hammering on that ark. And let our life be the witness, no matter how rare or plausible worldwide flooding seems to be. I would be very hesitant to connect current events to Revelation 13 just yet, or to run to the hills as some say Auntie Ellen tells them they should. You know, she also told us to move into the cities as well, to bring the gospel to all these people that haven't heard it. We have been doing this run around. By the way, if you want the quotes, I can give you the quotes. Please message me. I'll send you the quotes. For both sides. She says both things. We've been doing this run around since 1844 and it has not panned out well for anyone that has tried it since. With the way they can track people now, there isn't a hill remote enough for you to run to anyways. Don't run. Be like Noah. Stay, build, testify, and work on your family. Your family is the most important thing. Your children must be taught to face the world and adversity with courage, dignity, and perseverance. I'm not an intellectual. I'm not saying this because I'm smart or I'm wise. All I've been given access to is the patience or a beginning of patience that I did not have before God gave me children. That patience that God has started to give me or has begun to manage in my life has taught me to not be impulsive, to research objectively what is going on in the world, and to claim that promise that perfect love casts out fear. We cannot be the most fearful people in the room. We must be the ones willing to go into the furnace without knowing the outcome or knowing if God will pull us out. I see tribulation right now and I'm not scared. You know why? Because Jesus is coming soon. Are you ready? I am.